Rick Ness's crew are running 4 trucks full pelt to hit a gold bonanza at the bottom of the 210-foot deep Vegas Valley.
We got a small crew, and we got to work hard and we got to work tight together to make this happen.
Rick Ness has pulled off the ultimate season-ending strike. Racing against the coming freeze, he uncovered a $100 million gold deposit, concentrated and massive enough to set new records for the region. This isn't scattered nuggets, it's a true jackpot, confirming the claim as one of the richest in recent history. Months of planning, excavation, and sheer persistence came together in this final push. Every scoop revealed gold, so dense and valuable that even seasoned miners were stunned by the scale. Rick's timing and strategy turned a tight pre-winter window into a historic payday. The crew witnessed the haul firsthand, understanding that this wasn't just another season, it was a defining moment in modern gold mining. This find proves that experience, precision, and persistence still pay off in ways few can imagine. For anyone tracking high-stakes mining, this is the moment to follow Rick Ness in real time. Like and subscribe to see how Rick and his team secure the $100 million treasure before winter locks the claim. The Yukon sky burns orange as floodlights flicker against a wall of incoming snow. The wind howls like a warning, the kind only the North gives before it buries everything. Rick Ness stands outside his command trailer, breath turning to vapor, watching his machines tear through frozen mud. 3 weeks, that's all he has before the permafrost seals the ground solid. The season's last chance, and maybe his most dangerous push yet. Engines roar across the claim as crews run double shifts. Mud-smeared faces move like shadows in the storm, guided by the white blaze of halogens. Dump trucks line up at the wash plant, their trays overflowing with pay dirt that might, or might not, save them from ruin. In the trailer, the hum of generators mixes with the flicker of digital readouts. Yield graphs, pump pressures, water flow, ground temp. Everything monitored like a heartbeat. Rick leans over the monitor, eyes locked on a red zone climbing too fast. Pump pressure's dropping again, one of the operators calls out over the radio. Keep it steady, Rick snaps back. If that hose freezes, we're done. Outside, sleet slashes across the machines. Sparks fly as a welder seals a cracked sluice gate, steam curling around him in the bitter cold. The temperature dips past freezing. The mud begins to harden, and every bucket feels heavier, slower, colder. The miners know what it means. The season's end isn't a deadline, it's a death sentence. Rick paces in silence, the weight of every ounce they haven't dug pressing harder than the storm. On the table before him lies a faded topographic chart, edges curled and marked with notes. But it's not just any map. It's the one he pulled from an old Dawson City archive weeks ago, something he hasn't told the full crew about yet. He runs his gloved hand across the faint ink lines, tracing a channel that shouldn't exist. The coordinates point just past his current boundary into unregistered land, a lost stream bed, diverted a century ago. The handwriting on the margin reads, "Too rich to work." Buried and sealed, he zooms the satellite feed on his laptop, overlaying the old map over modern terrain. The channels align almost perfectly. Beneath those coordinates lies untouched ground, an anomaly that's never been drilled, never claimed, never even mentioned. If the old surveyor's note is right, that ground could hold what the early miners never dared to touch. He calls in his surveyor, Mike, and geologist Amanda to the trailer. "This can't go through official channels," Rick tells them. "If we find anything there, it stays between us." Amanda frowns. It's outside your lease zone. Anything we dig is technically government property. Rick stares at her. Then we won't report it. They exchange uneasy looks, but they know Rick well enough. When he sets his jaw like that, the decision's already made. By midnight, 2 trucks and a drone rig move toward the hidden stretch under cover of darkness. No radio chatter, no headlights, just silent machines crawling across the frozen tundra. The operation gets a name scrawled on a clipboard: Operation Midnight Run. When the drone takes flight, its infrared lens cuts through the snow veil. On the tablet screen, Amanda watches the digital topography scroll by, a ghostly landscape of ridges and shadows. Then something strange appears. Beneath the frost line, a band of high-density reflections flickers across the readout. Magnetic interference spikes. "What's that?" Mike murmurs. Amanda zooms in. "Not bedrock, not gravel either. Could be metal. Not natural metal," she says softly. "This pattern's too regular." They send ground-penetrating radar sweeps across the anomaly. The readings come back dense. 3 meters down. A solid formation unlike anything in normal alluvial terrain. The radar pings show sharp edges, right angles, a shape that looks built. Rick squints at the printout. "That looks like a chamber." Amanda shakes her head. "No, that looks like plating. Core drills go in next." The auger grinds through the frost and clay, pulling up fine material that glitters even under low light. The samples shimmer, gold threads intertwined with quartz. But deeper cores show something else entirely. Compacted material that clangs faintly when struck. Rick crouches beside the sample tube and taps it with a wrench. It rings. Not dull, like stone, metallic. Amanda checks her portable analyzer, the readings jumping wildly across the screen. This isn't raw mineral. There's smelted metal here. Refined. Someone buried this. Rick's eyes narrow. "You saying it's man-made?" She glances up, eyes wide. "That's not a vein," she whispers. "That's a vault." The air hangs still. The storm outside muffles against the walls of the trailer. The crew exchange silent looks, the kind that say they've just crossed into something bigger than gold. Rick exhales, gripping the edge of the table. The sound of the generator hums low, steady, like a heartbeat in the dark. He stands, pushing back his chair, eyes locked on the coordinates still glowing on the monitor. "We dig tonight," he says finally, before anyone else even knows it's there. Mike hesitates. "You sure you want to do this without clearance?" Rick smirks. "Clearance doesn't find gold. Shovels do outside. Engines fire up once more. The cold bites harder, the snow thickens. But none of that matters now." Under the cover of darkness, heavy equipment rolls toward the hidden zone. Treads crush the frost, cutting deep into ground that hasn't been disturbed in over 100 years. Rick climbs into his excavator, helmet lamp flicking on. He looks out across the field, where only the faint outlines of machines glow in the night fog. Every instinct screams, this isn't just about pay dirt anymore. It's about discovery, maybe even legacy. He grips the controls. The bucket lowers, biting into the ice-packed ground. The first scoop breaks the silence, a hollow, echoing sound that reverberates through the cab, the kind of sound that doesn't belong in soil. Something solid is down there, and whatever it is, someone went to a lot of trouble to hide it. Rick cuts the throttle, staring down at the pit forming below. The radar, the readings, the strange resonance. Everything points to one truth he can't ignore. This isn't a normal dig. It's the beginning of something buried deep beneath the Yukon, something that could change everything he thought he knew about the Klondike. The machines roar one last time, carving faster, deeper, chasing that metallic echo through frozen earth as the wind howls above. Snow lashes the equipment. Sparks streak through the dark. Somewhere, meters below, a hidden structure waits, untouched, unknown, and impossibly rich. Rick wipes frost from the window, a half-smile tugging at his face. "If that's what I think it is," he mutters, "we're about to make history." The excavator's bucket scrapes again, a sharp, ringing tone. Amanda's voice cuts through the radio, breathless. "Rick, you're right over it." Then the roar fades. Engines idle low, their sound swallowed by the wind. Every machine stands cloaked in blackout cloth, headlights taped, running only on faint infrared glows. The air feels heavier here, dense with frost and tension. Rick watches from the cab, breath fogging against the glass, eyes locked on the pit below. The bucket moves slow and deliberate now, each scoop peeling back a century of untouched earth. Steam rises from the disturbed ground as if the land itself were exhaling after being sealed too long. The first few meters are nothing but compacted gravel, frozen mud, and fractured stone. Then the resistance changes. The bucket grinds, sparks flicker under the frost, not rock this time, something else. Rick signals the crew to kill the engines. Silence drops over the site, broken only by the hiss of freezing air and the distant hum of the generators. The men gather with shovels and picks, scraping carefully until the metallic sound returns, sharp, distinct, hollow. The shovels strike a smooth surface beneath the clay. It isn't bedrock. The floodlight scans reveal dull reflections cutting through the dirt, man-made plating, rectangular and solid. Along one edge, iron handles emerge, corroded but intact. Faint engravings ripple across the metal, not modern markings, but hammer dents, deliberate strikes from hand-forged tools. Rick runs a gloved hand across the slab. The cold bites through leather, but he feels it. The precision, the craftsmanship, something ancient but deliberate. Amanda sets down her sensor array, the screen flickering with interference. "Electromagnetic field spiking," she mutters. "There's current down there." "Power lines?" Mike asks. "In this ground?" "Not a chance." Rick narrows his eyes. Then something's alive under that slab. He calls over the radio. "Get the reclaimer crane ready. We're opening it before daylight." The crew scrambles. Chains clatter, hydraulics groan, and steel hooks bite into the corners of the plating. The reclaimer roars to life, its engine echoing through the dark as snow begins to fall harder. For a moment, the slab refuses to move, as if frozen to the earth itself. Rick pushes the throttle higher. The tension line vibrates, then the earth cracks with a deep metallic groan. The slab tears free, releasing a burst of warm air from below that rolls across the site like a breath from a furnace. They peer down into the darkness, a hollow space revealed beneath the ice. Rick grabs a floodlight and lowers it in. What it illuminates stops everyone cold. The walls of the chamber shimmer faintly, ancient timbers coated in black tar, still glistening after centuries. The seams between beams are sealed with a silvery sheen. Amanda wipes a bit with her glove and freezes. "That's mercury," she says quietly, "used to preserve and repel moisture." The interior looks less like a mine and more like a crypt. Embedded in the clay walls, flecks of gold dust glint under the light, not scattered by accident, but patterned, pressed in, as if part of the design. The whole vault seems built not just to store something, but to protect it from decay, discovery, or both. In the center sits a single object, a wooden crate, skeletal and warped, wrapped tightly in oilskin, and bound with brass rivets that have barely tarnished. Rick climbs down into the chamber, boots sinking into clay that feels too soft, almost warm. He brushes frost from the crate, his flashlight tracing faint engravings on the lid, markings dulled by time. "Help me with this," he calls. The others lower ropes and a pulley rig. Slowly, the crate rises from the vault, its weight uneven, creaking with every inch. When it reaches the surface, the air carries a strange scent, cedar, iron, and that unmistakable tang of raw metal, like old coins heated over fire. Even in the freezing night, the crate feels unnaturally warm to the touch. Rick pries at the rivets, wood splintering with a dull crack. The lid gives way. A muted flash of gold floods the dark. Row upon row of bars, stacked with mathematical precision, edges sharp, surfaces untouched by time. The crew goes silent. Steam rises from their breaths as every eye locks on the impossible glow. Amanda kneels beside the crate, brushing off dust. "These markings, I've never seen anything like this." Each bar bears an emblem, a cross circled by rays stamped deep into the metal. Rick frowns. "That's not a mining company logo." "No," she replies softly, tracing the symbol with her finger. "It's ecclesiastical. Jesuit. Maybe they haul one bar into the light. Its polish is different, not the dull finish of poured gold, but refined, mirror smooth, like it's been shaped with tools older than the industrial age. The weight feels heavier than standard bullion, the purity almost unreal." Amanda pulls out her portable spectrometer. The numbers flash higher than any modern assay reading she's logged. 23.9 carats, she breathes. "That's impossible." "Not from this region." Mike flips one bar over and whistles. Stamped beneath the main mark are tiny Latin characters, partially eroded. "Per aurum libertas," Amanda reads aloud. "Through gold. Freedom." Rick lifts his head. The phrase hangs heavy in the cold air. The floodlights flicker from the storm, casting long shadows over the open pit. "So whose freedom?" he mutters. At the bottom of the crate, beneath the last layer of gold, lies something different. A folded parchment, sealed in wax that's cracked, but still holding form. Amanda carefully lifts it, her gloves trembling. The seal bears the same cross and circle emblem. When she opens it, lines of faded ink spill across the page. Coordinates, trade notes, and initials signed ODC. Rick squints. "What is that? A shipping manifest?" Amanda shakes her head. "It's a ledger. Look, shipments, destinations, tallies, routes, and here, transferred from Lima to custodian at Fort Reliance." Mike exhales sharply. "That's Jesuit territory, 18th century. Those missions were expelled from South America in the 1700s. Amanda's voice drops to a whisper. "You're telling me this gold was moved from Peru to the Yukon?" "Not moved," Rick says, eyes locked on the pit below. "Hidden." The implications churn in the freezing silence. Every bar, every symbol, every detail points to something impossible. A hidden cache smuggled across continents, preserved in a vault beneath the Yukon permafrost. The craftsmanship, the preservation methods, even the mercury sealing, none of it belongs to the Klondike era. It's older, purposeful. Rick runs a hand over one of the bars, the cold gold gleaming under the floodlights. "Whoever buried this didn't lose it," he says. "They meant to come back." A gust of wind slams into the camp, rattling tarps and equipment. Snow whirls through the beams of light, and for a moment, it feels like the whole landscape holds its breath. The vault yawns open below, dark, patient, and silent. Amanda looks back at the crate, then at Rick. What do we do with it? He doesn't answer right away. His gaze drifts toward the horizon, where dawn will break in a few hours. We finish the dig, he finally says, voice steady. No one outside this crew hears a word. Not yet. He turns toward the pit again, eyes reflecting the faint gleam of buried gold. Whatever they've found, it's far beyond a miner's dream. It's history itself, sealed under ice, bound by secrecy, and now, finally unearthed. And as the storm thickens, the ground beneath them hums faintly again, as if the earth itself remembers the secret they just disturbed. Later, in the relative calm of the trailer, the discovery leads them to the ledger. The brittle, yellowed pages lie open on a makeshift table, each sheet held down with small stones to keep it from curling in the draft. Rick leans over it, tracing faded ink lines that chart shipments, destinations, and cryptic initials, ODC. Amanda hovers beside him, scanning each entry with a handheld light, her breath fogging the cold air. The letters stand out, deliberate and exact, revealing a trail of gold movements across continents, through ports and trading posts no modern record acknowledges. Mike runs a finger down the columns. Ordo Dei Custodes, he mutters, the order of God's keepers. Never thought I'd see that in real life, Rick nods. 1899. They financed settlements, moved gold out of South America, and some of it ended up here. Amanda frowns. Legends always said they vanished by 1902. All the treasure lost or melted down. Nobody thought a cache could survive this long. Rick's eyes narrow. Survive and stay hidden. That's the point. He spreads the ledger across the entire table. Each page tells the story of shipments disguised as mundane trade, sugar, textiles, rum, masking the movement of gold ingots worth fortunes. There are coordinates scribbled in the margins, some of them matching rivers and valleys deep in the Yukon, others unrecognizable, possibly long-dried channels or secret routes. The handwriting varies slightly. Different agents over decades, all using the same code, the same seal. This isn't a mine anymore, Rick mutters. It's a cover-up site. The storm outside intensifies, whipping snow into drifts that pile against the trailer. But inside, the crew moves with urgency. Word is already spreading through the Yukon mining circles. Drone footage from neighboring claims catches unusual night operations. Low lights, blacked-out machines, trucks arriving and departing at odd hours with unmarked loads. Government inspectors are mobilizing, and rivals sniff at anything out of the ordinary. Rick slams his palm against the table. From here on, radio silence, encrypt everything. Nobody leaves, nobody comes in. The crew nods, understanding the stakes. There's no time for mistakes. They start by smelting portions of the gold into ingots, mixing some metals to disguise origin markers, ensuring that if anyone tries to trace the bars, they'll hit nothing. The portable furnaces roar against the cold, a golden glow flickering across frost-covered faces. Sparks leap as metal melts, the scent of heated gold filling the trailer, mingling with the cold, dry air of the Yukon night. Outside, excavators and cranes dig deeper, moving faster with each cycle of the bucket. The frost line is creeping lower, and time is slipping away like sand through a sieve. Rick monitors the readings obsessively, temperature sensors, structural integrity monitors, and the EM fields that flare whenever a load nears the vault. Every beep is a heartbeat, every flash a warning. Then, as if the ground itself protests their haste, the first warning comes. A loud crack echoes from below. Rick jumps down from the excavator, eyes scanning the pit. Heavy snowfall and the unstable soil combine to make the chamber precarious. Beams supporting the vault begin to groan, bending under centuries of pressure compounded by their digging. Amanda shouts over the wind, "Support lines are shifting. This is bad." Rick signals the crew to pull back. The snow intensifies, covering tracks, machines, and scaffolding with a slick layer of white that conceals hazards beneath. A slurry of melted permafrost and runoff begins seeping into the excavation, flooding the lower tunnels. Machinery struggles, mud sucking at wheels and treads, threatening to trap them in the pit. They try to reinforce the beams, shoring up the vault with temporary supports, but the ground is failing faster than human hands can stabilize it. A distant rumble grows, the sound of earth moving, ice cracking. Rick grips the crane's controls, feeling the vibrations travel up his arms. The first portion of the chamber collapses, beams snapping with explosive force. Clay and frozen soil cascade into the pit, a deafening roar, swallowing the lower levels in, a torrent of ice and debris. Rick yells for the crew to evacuate. They sprint across the slick surface, leaping over cables and equipment, their boots sinking into mud and snow. Amanda hauls the last load of smelted gold as Mike clears the way behind her. The pit implodes with a violent shudder, swallowing the remaining intact sections of the vault under 30 feet of frozen earth. The sound echoes off the cliffs, bouncing into the night as if the land itself is mourning the loss. Sensors and monitors go offline, killed by mud, water, and ice. Machines are abandoned to avoid further casualties, excavators half-buried, cranes tilted awkwardly in frozen slurry, and generators drowned in runoff. The crew huddles together, chest heaving, covered in mud and frost, their breath steaming in the air, watching the snow cover the scar of their labor. Rick scans the remnants that made it to the surface. Only half the cache survived the collapse, enough to be valuable beyond imagination, but the rest remains trapped in the frozen tomb below. The gold they managed to extract glints faintly in the floodlights, stacked on pallets and wrapped in tarps. The promise of fortune mingled with the bitter taste of what was lost. Even as the storm continues to hammer the Yukon, Rick examines the ledger and the crates. Every page, every mark, every symbol now feels heavier. The weight of history, secrecy, and the dangerous knowledge they now carry. The snowdrifts begin to mask the pit, erasing evidence of their intrusion. But in Rick's mind, the story is far from over. They've uncovered something ancient, something intentional, something that could rewrite the understanding of gold transport and preservation in the North. But the collapse is a stark reminder. Some treasures are too well hidden for easy retrieval. Some caches are meant to remain lost. And in the icy silence that follows, the crew realizes that even in victory, the land still commands respect and fear, holding more secrets beneath its frozen crust than anyone could ever unearth in a single season. Rick finally turns from the pit, eyes sweeping over the snowbound machines, the half-recovered gold, and the frost-slicked earth. The ledger still lies open, the notes of ODC whispering of centuries-long plans and deliberate concealments. For every ounce of gold they extracted, there's an unknown amount still buried. A vault within a vault, entombed in ice, waiting for someone daring enough to return. And as the wind tore across the claim, the team packed what they could carry, loading salvaged ingots and parchment into crates and onto sleds. The Yukon night was relentless, but so was their resolve. Half the treasure might have been lost beneath the frozen collapse, but what remained was enough to cement their season as historic, proof that even against nature, against secrecy, and against time itself, a determined crew could uncover riches that legends only dared whisper about. Once the last crate was secured, the operation shifted into its next perilous phase, transport. The storm raged with full force as blacked-out trucks rolled down hidden trails carved into the Yukon wilderness, each vehicle carrying sealed, unmarked crates strapped for security. Rick Ness rode in the lead truck, engine idling quietly, eyes scanning the dark for any sign of movement. Snow whipped across frozen ridges, and yet the low, steady rhythm of the convoy held firm. The weight of the gold and documents felt secondary to the tension gripping every crew member. Knowing what they carried could make them targets, not just for government oversight, but for rival miners and opportunistic thieves alike. The convoy veered off the main logging roads, cutting through unpatrolled snow-packed paths that only Rick and a few others knew existed. Mile after mile, the storm swallowed them, keeping the world at bay. At one bend, Rick halted the lead truck, signaling the rest to do the same. Using satellite maps and an encrypted GPS system, he guided the team toward a private airstrip. Long abandoned, except for occasional charters, snowplows had cleared a single runway hidden among dense spruce and fir, and Rick felt a thrill, the kind that came from executing a plan where a single mistake could unravel everything. The first crate was hoisted onto the tarmac, wrapped in tarps, and loaded onto the waiting C-130. Each box went on in silence. Men working quickly, gloved hands moving with precision despite the numbing cold. The roar of the aircraft's engines eventually drowned out the wind, the cargo doors closing with a metallic clang that echoed across the frozen field. Rick checked each pallet one last time, ensuring nothing could betray the origin of the gold or the route it had taken. Once secured, the plane taxied down the icy runway, lifting into the storm-shrouded sky toward an undisclosed destination. Whispers later suggested Swiss intermediaries and conversion into untraceable bonds, though no proof ever surfaced. Back at camp, the crew received their settlements quietly. Envelopes slipped into hands under the cover of darkness. Each payment came with a non-disclosure agreement, signed hastily, binding them legally to secrecy about the codename they'd all come to know, Vault 39. Conversations fell to whispers, eyes flicking nervously over shoulders as if the night itself could report them. Rick lingered only briefly, walking among his men, nodding in approval, then disappearing into the shadows, to vanish from Yukon radar for 2 weeks. When he returned, it was with a new set of equipment, a quiet grin, and a calm that suggested the operation had succeeded without a hitch, though the rumors and legends it would spawn were already beginning to take root. Metallurgical analysis confirmed what Rick had suspected from the first bars they pried from the vault. The gold was astonishingly pure, pre-1850 refined, nearly 24 carats, each piece shining like sunlight caught in ice. Specialists marveled at the uniformity, the density, the weight, each ingot beyond anything produced in the Klondike era. The recovered portion alone, the part that had survived the collapse of the vault, was valued at over $100 million, though not a single government record would ever officially acknowledge it. Even in the deepest cold, the legend persisted. A lost vault, a hidden fortune, and a man named Rick Ness who had beaten time, ice, and secrecy to touch history itself. And somewhere beneath the snow, the rest waits, patient, as the Yukon's eternal frost seals its secrets once more.